to everybody. Today, in fact, what I would like to do is to read chapter on Pratiti Samutpada and also the very last chapter on Drishti Pariksha. Before going into that, I would like to refresh your memory on two very important chapters we discussed so far. One is Arya Satya Pariksha, we discussed week before, and the last week we discussed Nirvana Pariksha. So these two chapters are very important in Nagarjuna's philosophy. I am not going to discuss these chapters completely again, but just to remind you of the basic content of these chapters. Particularly the chapter on Noble Truths, chapter 24, is one of the very important chapters because in this chapter Nagarjuna comes up with his opponent criticism. So this is something we discussed earlier. So his opponent criticism is, if all this is empty, then there is not arising and ceasing. It implies that Four Noble Truths do not exist for you. So the opponent charges that, if everything is empty, Udaya, Vyaya will not be there. Udaya means rising of suffering. Vyaya, cessation of suffering. So if everything is empty, rising and cessation will not be there. If rising and cessation not there, then there will not be Four Noble Truths. In the absence of Four Noble Truths, it is not proper to talk about understanding, removal, cultivation and realization. Pratigna, Prahana, Bhavana, Sakshi Karma. Pratigna refers to the Dukkha Satya. Prahana refers to the Samudaya. Bhavana refers to the Marga. Sakshi Karma refers to the Nirvana. So Nirvana has to be realized. Path has to be developed, cultivated. The cause of suffering has to be removed and the suffering has to be understood. Now, if the Four Noble Truths are not there, then there will not be these four things. Tadabhavan navidyante chatvarari phalanicha. If those things are not there, then arya phala, noble fruits will not be there. And then phalabhave phalasthanona santi pratipannaka. If the phala is not there, fruits are not there, then there are no people who have realized the fruit. And also there are no people, pratipannaka, who are working on that, which means sangha. Sangho nasti neche santi testa purusha pudgala. If the sangha is not there, the 8 noble persons will not be there. Abhavacchari sattanam saddharmopi navidyate. If the Four Noble Truths are not there, then saddharma is not there. Then Dharme chasati sanghe cha kutam buddho bhavishyati. If dharma and sangha is not there, how can there be the Buddha? Evan trinyapi ratnani bruvana pratibhadase. So the opponent says that if you say everything is empty, ultimately you reject Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. Not only that, then he says Shunyatam, Phalasadbhavang, Adharmang, Dharmamevacha, Sarva Sangvyavaharancha Laukikan pratibhadase. Not only that, actually all dharmas and adharmas, good and bad, sarva sangvyavahara, not only all types of communications, language. So, this charge is a very, very serious charge. Now, here Nagarjuna comes up with his opponent's charge against him. His opponent says that if everything is empty, ultimately you don't have Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. So, this is why many people think that Nagarjuna is a nihilist. Nagarjuna advocates nihilism. But here, important thing is, when you read this chapter very carefully, you will see that Nagarjuna answers these questions, and ultimately Nagarjuna shows that Buddha, Dharma and Sangha will not be there, not if everything is empty. Actually, if everything is not empty, then there will not be Buddha, Dharma and the Sangha. So, Nagarjuna completely turns this opponent's arguments the other way around. And then for the first time here, Nagarjuna introduces two truths. Dvesatye samupasritya buddhanam dharmadeshana loka sangruti satyancha paramartatah. Dvesatye samupasritya buddhanam dharmadeshana. The dharmadeshana, the teaching of the Buddha, is associated with two truths. Loka sangruti satyancha paramartatah. Yonayorna vijanati vibhagang satyordayo. If someone does not know the analysis of these two truths, te tattvang vijananti gambhirang buddha shasani. They do not understand the deep nature, gambhira, deep nature of the Buddha shasana. Then he says, Vyavaharang anasritye paramartho nadeshyate. You cannot talk about paramartha without vyavahara, without language. However, paramarthang anagamma nirvanang nadigammete. Without realizing the paramartha, you cannot realize nirvana. So, paramarthang anagamya nirvanang nadigammete. So, Nagarjuna goes on showing that, and then here Nagarjuna says, Vinasheti durudrushta shurnita mandamedasam sarpoyata durgrahito vidyava dushprasadita. Like a snake taken in the wrong manner, or like a skill wrongly practiced, emptiness will destroy the foolish person. So emptiness is like a double-edged knife. It can cut both ways. If you don't use it correctly, then it will destroy you. That's what Nagarjuna says. It's like sarpoyata durgrahito. If you catch a snake in the wrong manner, it will turn back and bite you. Actually, this reminds you of Alagadupama Sutta, right? This simile is from the Alagadupama Sutta. So, Alagadupama Sutta, if you remember, Buddha says the same thing. If you take the Dhamma in the wrong manner, Dhamma will destroy you. So, Dhamma is good, but on the other hand, you take it in the wrong manner, then it's going to be very bad. The whole issue in Alagadupama Sutta is that some people, some foolish people, Buddha says, learn the Dhamma in order to attack others, in order to win debates. Buddha says that is wrong. That is taking the Dharma in the wrong manner. And finally he says, when you become enlightened, you even give up Dharma. Then he comes up with this very well-known simile of raft. Nittaranattaya no gahanattaya. Dhamma is for you to cross over, but not to take it on your back. So, and then Nagarjuna continues. Then he says, number 14, Sarvancha yujyate tasya shunyata yasya yujyate. All is proper for whom emptiness is proper. Nothing is proper for whom emptiness is not proper. If you are okay with emptiness, everything is okay with you. If you are not okay with emptiness, nothing is okay with you. See, Nagarjuna want to show that emptiness is shunyata is, such a fundamental thing. Then again, another very important statement is number 18. Yah pratitya samutpadam shunyatam tam pratakshmahe. Sa prajnapti rupadaya pratipatsaiva madhyama. Here Nagarjuna says, Yah pratitya samutpadam shunyatam tam pratakshmahe. Whatever is the pratitya samutpada, we call it shunyata. So this is very, very important in understanding Nagarjuna. So actually what he means by shunyata is pratitya samutpada. So it's another word to denote pratitya samutpada. So the whole point is, if you are in a conditioned reality, things are different. But if you are in absolute reality, then of course all sorts of the problems arise. So therefore this statement, Yah pratitya samutpadam shunyatam tam pratakshmahe sa prajnapti rupadaya pratipatsaiva madhyama. So shunyata, madhyama pratipat, pratitya samutpada, Nagarjuna says all these three things are one. Now again, what Nagarjuna says you can understand if you read Nidana Sanyutta discourses. In many discourses in the Nidana Sanyutta, Buddha For example, if you take Kaccayana Gotta Sutta or Achela Kassapa Sutta, Buddha first demonstrates, how these dualities are wrong. And then Buddha says, Etete ubho ante anupagamma majjena tathagato dhamman deseti yadidang avidyapatya sankhara. Now this statement you get in many of these discourses. Etete ubho ante anupagamma, without approaching, without getting into these extremes. Majjena tathagato dhamman deseti. So majjena dhamman deseti, from the middle. Yadidang, namely, avidyapatya sankhara. So here Nagarjuna says, Shunyata, Pratitya Samutpada, and Madhyama Pratipad. All three are the same. It is almost the same thing. Why I say almost? Because Majjhima Patipada in the Theravada tradition refers to the Majjhima Patipada. But Majjhena Dhamman Deseti is little bit different. Because that is the way of teaching the Dhamma from the middle. But of course, if you look at carefully, way of the teaching the Dhamma means you are avoiding two extremes. Now, Majjhima Patipada is also avoiding extreme. So ultimately, both comes to the same. Although both comes to the same, the way of saying is little bit different. Majjhima Patipada is one. Majjhena Dhammang Deseti is another. So Majjhena Dhammang Deseti is to teach the Dhamma in the middle. But how do you teach the Dhamma from the middle? With reference to Patissamuppada. So ultimately it comes to the same thing. But then this equation, Yah Pratitya Samutpadam Shunyatam Tam Pratakshmaya, is something very important in understanding Nagarjuna. Now here, number 19, Apratitya Samutpanno Dharma Kachinna Vidyate. There is not anything that is not dependently arisen. There is not anything that is not dependently arisen. So if there is anything that is dependently arisen, therefore there is not anything that is not empty. So everything is empty. Everything is dependently arisen, therefore everything is empty. Or you can say everything is empty, therefore everything is dependently arisen. In other words, emptiness and dependent origination are the same. And the same thing you can use empty and dependently arisen. Now in the discourses you find two main concepts. When it comes to, so you have Pratitya Samutpada, Pratitya Samutpanna Dharma. Pratitya Samutpanna. So this is a Pratitya Samutpada, Pratitya Samutpanna. Same thing you have Shunyata, and then you have Shunya. Now, if you look at these things, you can see that Pratitya Samutpada is a noun. It refers to the doctrine. Pratitya Samutpada, it is the doctrine, it is the teaching. Pratitya Samutpanna Dhamma, or in Pali, Paticca Samuppanna Dhamma means the phenomena that are arisen according to Paticca okay? So Pratitya Samutpada, Pratitya Samutpanna are interrelated two things. The first refers to the doctrine or the concept. The second refers to the things that are arisen according to that teaching. Similar thing, Shunyata. Shunyata is Tadhita word, grammatically. It's a noun, Shunyata. But Shunya means, like Pratitya Samutpanna, adjective. Shunya means empty. Shunyata means emptiness. So in Nagarjuna's philosophy, you can see that emptiness and empty, dependent origination and dependently arisen, both these set of concept refer to the same thing. So, apratitya samutpanno dharmah kaschinna vidyate. 19. Yasmat tasma dashunyopi dharmah kaschitna vidyate. Now, from here you can see that Nagarjuna says how Four Noble Truths will not be available. Well, look at number 21. Apratitya samutpannan kuto dukkham bhavishyati. Anitya muktan dukkham hi tat svabhavena vidyate. Now, what Nagarjuna says here is something a little bit different from, again, the Theravada way of putting it. Now, here Nagarjuna says, Apratitya samutpannan kuto dukkham bhavishyati. How can there be suffering which is not dependently arisen? Anitya muktan dukkham hi. The Buddha has said that dukkha is anitya. Tat svabhavena vidyate. If you have svabhava, of course there is no anitya or impermanence in svabhavya. Now, interesting thing is this. In Theravada tradition, we talk about anicca dukkha anatta, right? But then also we talk about how to eradicate suffering, get rid of suffering. But usually we don't say dukkha is anitya, right? We don't say dukkha is anitya. But actually, the very fact that you can terminate suffering means it is anitya, right? If dukkha is nitya, you can never end it. I mean, that's a very interesting way of, it is not, it doesn't really contradict with what Buddha teaches in the Pali discourses. But Nagarjuna puts it in a different manner. So not only everything is anicca, even suffering is anicca. Now we are suffering, but suffering is not permanent. In fact, we use this concept very often, very much in the counseling in people, psychological counseling. When people have a lot of problems, they come to counselors. In the Buddhist counseling, we say that, look, this problem is impermanent. That problem, it doesn't last forever. Today you have a problem, like everything else, it is also impermanent. So your problem will be impermanent. So, to understand. So the same thing when you say dukkha. Dukkha is anitya bhukta dukkhanhi. So dukkha is anitya. Tat svabhavena vidyate. If you have own nature or self nature, then of course it can't be anitya. So the whole issue is this. If you talk in the terms of svabhava, then you can't talk about anitya. Now, behind the Four Noble Truths, one central concept is anitya, because you transform yourself from suffering to happiness, dukkha to nirvana. Now, how can you transform yourself from dukkha to nirvana if things are nitya? If everything is nitya, you can't do anything. If everything is nitya, you can't do anything. So, you can end suffering because suffering is anicca. So, it is interesting to see, that way of thinking. So, whole argument is suffering is also pratitya samutpanna. The series of adjectives, aniccan, sankatam, patitya samutpanna, all these things go together, okay. So, स्वभावतो विद्यमानं किमुना समुदेशते तस्मात् समुदेयो नास्ति शून्यतां प्रतिपादसा. So if you don't accept shunyata, then of course you don't have samudaya. Na nirodha svabhavena sato dukkhasya vidyate. There can't be nirodha if dukkha exists in real sense. So it goes like that. Yada dukkhan samudayo nirodhaschana vidyate margo dukkha nirodhatvat katamam prapayishyati. If you don't have dukkha samudaya and nirodha, how can there be marga? So ultimately, Nagarjuna says, See, Palabhave, Palastano, Nasanti Pratipannaka, Sango Nasti, Nache Santi, Testa Purusa Pudgala. Ultimately, Nagarjuna brings back the charge against him, against his opponent. There he says, Abhavachari Satyanam Saddharmopina Vidyate Dharme Chasati Sangecha Kuto Buddho Bhavishyati. Abhavachari Satyanam, in the absence of Arisatya, Saddharmopina Vidyate, there can't be Saddharma. Dharme Chasati Sangecha, number 30. In the absence of Dharma and the Sangha, Katam Buddho Bhavishyati, how can there be the Buddha? So here Nagarjuna shows that if you reject Pratitya Samutpada, then you reject everything. Sarva Sangvivaharansya Laukikan Pratibadase Yat Pratitya Samutpada Shunyatam Pratibadase. Again, what his opponent said, Nagarjuna, even language will be impossible with Shunyata. Now Nagarjuna says, my friend, language will be impossible if you don't accept Shunyata. Ajata niruddhancha kutastancha bhavishyati vichitrabhi avastavi swabhavi rahitan jagat. If universe has swabhava, then nothing will change. Everything will remain exactly in the same manner. Nagarjuna trying to show something like that, if everything remains the same, the universe will be dull, right? Because changing is in a way we like, we change the weather, we change the places, for holidays people go to different places, people go to mountains, people go to forests, people go to cool places, snowy places, because things are changing. But if Shunyata is not there, wrong, then universe will not have any change. So that's what he says. Vichitrabhi avasthabhi swabhave rahitan jagat. When all nature exists, the world will be not born or not ceased, and will be stand still and devoid of various states. Vichitrabhi avasthabhi. Universe will not have different stages. Then he says, finally, Yah pratitya samutpadam pashyati idam sapashyati dukkhan samudayan chaiva nirodhang margamevacha. If one sees pratitya samutpada, he sees Four Noble Truths. Now, this should remind you of the teaching of the Buddha. Yo paticca samutpadam pasati, so dhammam pasati, right? Dhamma means if you take Four Noble Truths. So, this is exactly what the Buddha said. Yo paticca samutpadam pasati, so dhammam pasati. Okay. So, this is how he terminates the chapter. Now, I think this chapter is very important for you to, the C. Nagarjuna's philosophy. I will move from there and then in the last week discussion, we discussed another very important thing, namely Nirvana Pariksha. Nirvana Pariksha is also started with a similar thing. Yadi shunyamidam sarva mudayo nasti navayah prahanadva nirodhatva kasya nirvanamishyate. So he asked from his opponent, Yadi shunyam idam sarvam. If everything is empty, how can there be nirvana? Yadya shunyam idam sarvam mudayo nasti navayah prahanadva nirodhatva kasya nirvanamishyate. So here it's very interesting. You see Nagarjuna is using the argument in both sides. If on the one hand, in Nagarjuna's opinion, opponent's opinion, if everything is shunya, there will be not be udaya and vaya, there will not be nirvana. Then Nagajuna's Yadyashunyamidam Sarvam. Number 2, if everything is not empty, there will not be a rising and ceasing. So here you can see, number 1 is opponent argument, number 2 is Nagajuna's own argument based on Shunyata. So the whole discussion on Nirvana, Aprahinang, Asampraptang, Anuchinnang, Asaswatang, Aniruddhang, Anutpannang, Etat Nirvana Muchyate. So Nirvana has been characterized in those terms. Now if you read this chapter carefully, as we discussed last week, Nagarjuna is trying to prove that Nirvana is not Bhava, Abhava, both or neither. Now this particular debate in the Buddhist tradition is very well known. So the question whether the Nirvana is Bhava or whether the Nirvana is Abhava, whether it is both Bhava and Abhava, neither Bhava no Abhava. So these 4 positions Nagarjuna want to show that are not applicable to Nirvana. Not only to Nirvana, even to the Arahant and many other things, these are not applicable. So the essence of this chapter we read last week is to show that you cannot say Nirvana is Bhava, you cannot say Nirvana is Abhava, you cannot say it is both, you cannot say it is neither. So these 4 positions are not applicable to Nirvana. Now if you remember, look at Visuddhimagga. In the Visuddhimagga, Venerable Buddha Ghosha, he really argues to show that Nirvana is Bhava, not Abhava. Now, that's a very interesting discussion is there in the Visuddhimagga. Nirvana is Bhava. He says that Nirvana is not like Sasavisana. We talk about Sasavisana. Sasavisana doesn't exist. Buddha Ghosh says Nirvana is not like Sasavisana. Nirvana exists. Nirvana is Bhava. But interestingly, if you look at the discourses, you can see that Buddha rejected both. Buddha rejected the concept that Nirvana is Bhava and Nirvana is Abhava. Because, both are metaphysical views. But on the other hand, within the Buddhist tradition, of course, Buddha Ghosha's effort we have to understand coming from a different direction. According to Venerable Buddha Ghosha, if we say that Nirvana is Abhava, Nirvana doesn't exist, then what are we trying to achieve? Why are we becoming Buddhist if Nirvana is not there? So that is Buddha Ghosha's concern. But the problem is, I think the problem is, when you say Nirvana exists, this word exist has many different meanings, not only one meaning. Okay? Now one meaning is to say the chair exists, table exists, right? But then you can't say Nirvana exists in that sense, right? But on the other hand, existence has many other different meanings. Nirvana exists if you realize Nirvana. Nirvana exists for the person who realizes it. Like this chair will exist even if we are not there. Yesterday we were here, chair was here, then all of us left. We came this morning and the chair is here. So we don't have any connection with that, right? But you can't talk about Nirvana like that. It is either your Nirvana or it is my Nirvana or somebody's Nirvana, but not Nirvana itself. Nirvana doesn't exist like a table and chair. So, the confusion was, this distinction was not really appreciated or understood. So this is why all these problems. But anyhow, Nagarjuna want to show in this chapter that nothing is, Nirvana is not Bhava, Abhava, both or neither. So this is basically the crux of this chapter we are discussing. But I am not going to discuss this chapter completely because we discussed this last week. Finally, Nagarjuna concludes with Sarvopalambopasama Prapanchopasama Shiva. Na kvachit kaschit dharma buddhena desita. Buddha has not taught any dharma anywhere to anyone, which leads to pacification of all objects and proliferations, and which is auspicious. Now, there is again two ways of understanding this. In a superficial manner, if you look at it, Nagarjuna seems to be saying that Buddha didn't teach anything. But it is not what Nagarjuna is trying to say. Buddha did not teach anything. Buddha has not taught any dharma anywhere to anyone, which leads to. Now actually, if you understand the dharma in the Swabhava sense, Buddha has not taught anything like that. It doesn't mean that Buddha never taught dharma. Okay? What it means is simply Buddha never taught anything in the Swabhava sense. So we need to interpret Nagarjuna in that manner here. Now the point is, these two chapters, Arisatya Pariksha and Nirvana Pariksha, these are very important two chapters in understanding Nagarjuna's philosophy. So with this, the reminding you the basic things, what I would like to do today is, in fact, I did not translate these last two chapters because particularly the chapter on Pratitya Samutpada is pretty simple. So I thought, I don't need to translate it. And then the last chapter on the views also we will read together. I did not translate it either. Okay, chapter 26, I think you have your handout. Examination of 12 causal factors. Dwadasanga Pariksha. Chapter 26 is Dwadasanga Pariksha. Dwadasa Anga. Dwadasa means 12 Anga. Now, one very important observation about this chapter is all the other chapters are Nagarjuna's Pariksha. This chapter is also Pariksha. But although this chapter is a Pariksha, this is only you don't find much of a Pariksha here. This is a simple explanation of Dwadasanga. But all the other chapters were not like that. All the other chapters were really parikshas, examinations. But in this chapter, you don't find the examination. Now, in that sense, this is not really a pariksha. But like all the other chapters are pariksha, this chapter is also called pariksha. But this is not a pariksha really. This is an exposition. Now, why Nagarjuna changes here? Why the method has been changed? Actually, method has been changed because Pratitya Samutpada is his main theory he is using in order to present the idea of emptiness. So Pratitya Samutpada is very important to him. So although he critique everything according to Swabhava, but if you take away Swabhava, then the concept of Pratitya Samutpada is, as a doctrine, most important to Nagarjuna. That is his main philosophical method. Okay? Main philosophical method. So therefore Nagarjuna uses the Pratitya Samutpada as a true teaching of the Buddha. So in the Dwadasanga Pariksha, what you see is Nagarjuna is just giving exposition of Pratitya Samutpada. We will look at this quickly. Punarbhavaya sanskaran avidya nirutastridha abhisanskruta uyanstair gatim gacchati karmabhi. A person enveloped by ignorance forms such dispositions in the threefold ways leading to rebecoming, and through such actions he moves on to his destiny. Now actually person enveloped by ignorance. So it starts with ignorance. Avidya nirutah. Avidyaya nirutah. The person who is covered with avidya, enveloped by ignorance, forms such dispositions in the threefold ways, leading to rebecoming. Rebecoming means punarbhava. So that it is the avidya that lead people to punarbhava. Punarbhavaya sanskaran avidya nivrutas tridha, in three manners. Through such actions he moves on to his destiny. Gatim gacchati karmabhi. Now, how does he go in the sansara by avidya? Through the karma. In Pratiti Samutpada formula, you have avidya patya sankhara. What are the sankharas? Kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, mano sankhara. What are the sankharas in this context? Sanskaras are really actions. So in other words, sanskara is a word for action. So here Nagarjuna uses the word karma. Gatim gacchati karma bih. With these karmas, he goes on in his circle of births. Abhisanskruti yams, abhisanskruti, that there comes the concept of sanskara. Here, Professor Kalupahana says in the page 370, while disagreeing totally with this interpretation, I propose to show that this chapter represents the most positive explanation by Nagarjuna of the Buddha's teachings on bondage and freedom, as enunciated in the vast collection of discourses, with the discourses to Katyayana as the pivotal text. Indeed, without the positive teachings presented here, coming after the negative analysis in the last 25 chapters, it is rather difficult to see how Nagarjuna could claim to be restating the Buddha word as he openly expressed in the several places earlier. It is indeed surprising to see how most interpreters of Nagarjuna are looking for positive statements of the doctrine primarily through negations, while ignoring all positive statements of Nagarjuna. So this is Professor Kalupahana's remarks about the people who interpret Nagarjuna negatively. According to Professor Kalupahana, Nagarjuna, after negative critique, in the chapter 26, Nagarjuna gives the positive statement, analysis, account of Pratiti Samutpada. The reason why he treats Pratiti Samutpada, because that is the main teaching Nagarjuna is making use of it. Because as we saw earlier, Yah Pratiti Samutpadam Shunyatam Tam Pratakshmahi. So whatever is Pratiti Samutpada, that is Shunyata. So actually Pratiti Samutpada and Shunyata are the same. Shunya and Pratiti Samutpanna dharmas are the same. So therefore it is very important for Nagarjuna to have Pratiti Samutpada teaching clarified. So a person enveloped by ignorance from such disposition in the threefold ways. Threefold ways, I am not sure, may be referring to Kama, Rupa and Arupa worlds. Okay. So he says, due to sanskara, the person covered with avidya goes from birth to birth. Now this is the first one, okay. So simply it says, due to avidya, avidya nivruttah, the person who is enveloped with avidya in the Kama, Rupa and Arupa bhavas, due to his sanskaras, due to his karmas, goes in the sansara. Now that is the basic idea. Then we look at number 2. Vijnanam samnivishate sanskara pratyam gatau. Samnivishtetha vijnane namarupam nisichyate. Consciousness with disposition as it is conditions enters the new life. When consciousness has entered, the psychophysical personality is infused. Vijnana Namarupa. Then avidya pachya sankara, sankara pachya vijnanam, vijnana pachya namarupa. So it is the same thing. So the Vijnana, consciousness, with dispositions as the condition. Dispositions are the conditions. Samskara pratya. Professor Kalupana translates sanskara as dispositions. So avidya pattaya sankhara is described in here. Vijnana with sanskara enters the life. When consciousness has entered, nama rupa, the psychophysical personality is infused. So avidya pattaya sankhara. Now sankhara pattaya vijnana. Vijnana pattaya nama rupa. And so all these 5 things due to avidya in the first stanza, Nagarjuna described avidya and sanskara. In the second stanza, sankhara pattaya vijnanam, vijnana pattaya nama rupa. So that aspect is described. Number 3, Nishikte nama rupetu shadayatana sambhavah. Nishikte nama rupetu shadayatana sambhavah. When the psychophysical personality has been infused, the occurrence of the 6 spheres of sense, shadayatana, cha ayatana. So from the nama rupa, in the Patisampada formula, you have nama rupa pattaya salayatana, right? Nama rupa pattaya salayatana. Shadayatanam agamya samparshah sampravartate. Depending upon the 6 spheres, proceed contact, passa, sparsha. Nama rupa pattaya salayatana pattaya passu. So this is depending upon the 6 spheres, sparsha, contact. Then 4 and 5. Chakshuh pratitya rupancha samanvahara mevacha nama rupang pratityayvang vijnanam sampravartate. Sannipatah trayanam yo rupa vijnana chakshusam sparshah sah tasmat sparshacha vedana sampravartate. The same thing. Thus, depending upon the eye and material form and attention to, and depending upon the psychophysical personality, proceed consciousness. Chakshuh pratitya rupancha samanvahara mevacha. So chakku means eye, rupa means rupa. Now in Pali you have chakkuncha paticca rupecha upajjati chakku vijnana. Here Nagarjuna adds one more thing, namely samanvahara. Samanvahara means attention. In the Pali discourse, of course, we don't have that. Chakkuncha paticca rupecha upajjati chakku vijnana. But chakku vijnana doesn't arise only with chakku and rupa. There are many other factors. But of course, Buddha never described all these things. But Nagarjuna here adds one more important thing, namely samanvahara. So chakshum pratitya rupancha samanvahara evacha. Nama rupam pratityayvang vijnanam sampravartate. So due to nama rupa, psychophysical personality, vijnana. Nama rupa pattaya vijnana. Vijnana pattaya nama rupa. So it goes both ways. So avidya pattaya sankhara, sankhara pattaya vijnanam, vijnana pattaya nama rupam, salayatana, salayatana pattaya passo. Now then he says, whatever is the harmonious occurrence of the 3 factors, material form, consciousness and I, is contact. Tinnam sangati passo. In Pali we have tinnam sangati passo. Tinnam means the I form and the visual consciousness. All these 3 things together. Sangati. Tinnam sangati passo. Sangati means coming together. So tinnam sangati passo. Whatever is the harmonious occurrence of the 3 factors, material form, consciousness and I, is contact. Feeling proceed from such contact. Then Vedana pattaya tanha. So when you have Vedana, of course, from Vedana arises tanha. We'll move on to the next one. Conditioned by feeling is craving. Vedana pratyaya trishna. Vedana pratyaya trishna. So due to Vedana, trishna. Indeed, craving is feeling directed. The one who craves grasps onto the fourfold sphere of grasping. Vedana pratyaya trishna, vedanartam hi trushyate. Trushyate, trishna, tanha. What is the literal meaning of tanha? Trishna, tanha. Okay, we know tanha is translated into English as craving, but the real meaning of tanha is really thirsty. Thirst. Trishna. Trishna means to the thirst. So the basic literal meaning of tanha in Sanskrit trishna is thirst. So you want to keep on drinking. So that's the idea. So conditioned by feeling is craving. Indeed, craving is feeling directed. Vedanartang hi trushyate. You become thirsty for the Vedanas. Trushyamana upadanam upadatte chaturvidham. Trushyamana upadattam. From tanha comes upadana. Tanha pachya upadana. Then Professor Kalupana says the fourfold sphere of grasping are grasping for desire, views, kama tanha, bhava tanha, silabbata, attavada. So these are the four things. Number 7, upadane sati bhava upadatu pravartate. When the grasping arises, when upadana is there, becoming on the part of the grasper proceed. If he were to be a non-grasper, he would be released and there would be no further becoming. Now, this again is a very important thing. Upadane sati bhava, upadatu pravartate. When you have upadana, from upadana comes bhava. For the person, upadatu, one who grasps thoroughly, bhava occurs. Syadhi yadyanupadano muchyatena bhaved bhavah. However, if you do not have upadana, then of course there will not be bhava. In fact, this is a very important thing in the Paticcasamuppada formula, Paticcasamuppada sequence. The point you can break is this: tanha pachya upadana, upadana pachya bhava, right? But if you don't generate tanha, then of course you don't have upadana, then you don't have bhava. So the whole problem is, whole thing leads to avidya, leads to tanha. But vedana pachya tanha, if you don't develop tanha for vedana, then of course there is no upadana. If there is no upadana, there is no bhava. That means you attain nirvana. So according to Pratitya Samutpada, it is important to see that Nagarjuna identifies this link where you can break. You can break away from the samsara. The link is with Vedana. Okay? Now, Vedana Pachya Tanha. Everybody gets Vedana. Even Buddha gets Vedana, Arahant gets Vedana, but they don't generate Tanha. Ordinary Putujjana gets Vedana and then he or she develops tanha. So this is what it is. Move on to the next one. 5 aggregates constitute this becoming. Panchaskandha sacha bhava. Bhava jati pravartate. From bhava comes out jati. Jara marana dukkhadi sokah sapridevanah. Now from birth, from becoming proceed birth, suffering related to decay, death, grief, lamentation, dejection and despair, all these proceed from birth. Such is the occurrence of this entire mass of suffering. Kevalasya saivang etasya dukkha kandasya sambhavah. Now in the Pali you have evametasya kevalasya dukkha kandasya samudayo hoti, right? Now this is what Nagarjuna says here. From Panchaskandha, such a bhava, bhavehi jati, from bhava jati, and from jati, jara marana soka parideva dukkha domanasa. Now he says, Kevalasyavam etasya dukkha skandasya sambhavah. So this is how the beginning of entire mass of suffering takes place. Okay. Now this is the what is called Anuloma Paticcasamuppada, or how suffering arises according to dependent origination. So this is, I mean, pretty much basically what the Buddha says in the Pratityasamutpada. There is absolutely no different in this. Now, this is a good example to see that Nagarjuna is actually not a Mahayanist. Now, Nagarjuna is basically describing the concept of Pratityasamutpada as the Buddha taught. So, here you have how suffering arises. Now, then number 10. Thus, the ignorant forms disposition that constitute the source of the process, life process. So, sansara, moolang sanskaranang avidvan samskaroti yata. So, the avidwan, the person with avidya, generates sanskara, which is the sansara moolan, which is the root of the sansara. Sansara depends on basically because of the sanskaras generated by avidya. Avidvan karakah tasman navidvans tattva darshati. Now, therefore, it is the ignorant who is the agent, not the wise one because of his perception of truth. Actually, the wise person doesn't generate sanskaras. So now this is the end, how to end suffering. When ignorance has ceased, number 11, there is no occurrence of disposition. When you don't have avidya, you don't have sankara. However, the cessation of ignorance takes place as a result of the practice of true wisdom. So the cessation takes place, avidya nirodhastu jnanena syaiva bhavanat. So avidya nirodha happens jnanena syaiva bhavanas, from the jnana and from bhavana. Bhavana means development, cultivation. Tasya tasya nirodhena tantannabi pravartate dukkhaskandha kevaloyang evan samyak niruddhyate. With the cessation of these other factors of the 12-fold formula would not proceed. In this way, this entire mass of suffering ceases completely. So now that is the end of chapter 26. Now you can see that chapter 26 is pretty basic exposition of Pratityasamutpada, Anuloma Pratityasamutpada and Pratiloma Pratityasamutpada. Now here, as I said at the beginning, you don't get pariksha here. Okay? This is not a pariksha of Pratityasamutpada, this is a presentation of Pratityasamutpada. So in this entire book, this is the only chapter Nagarjuna goes away from pariksha. He plainly presents the basic teaching of Pratityasamutpada. Okay? So to see that Nagarjuna accepts and Nagarjuna presents Pratityasamutpada as his main philosophical teaching is very important in understanding Nagarjuna. Okay. You have any questions or anything, comments? Okay. We will be reading the very last chapter. The very last chapter of Nagarjuna is examination of views, Drusti Pariksha. Now this chapter is not like the last chapter. Last chapter we had exposition of Pratityasamutpada, but again with Drusti Pariksha, Nagarjuna goes into Pariksha or examination. Now this chapter is again one of the very important chapters for Nagarjuna's philosophy. Because here Nagarjuna talks about Drusti. Drusti means views. Now views, basically Drusti, in Pali Ditti, constitute the most important aspect. In the sense important because ultimately, the grasping of the Drusti is what causes suffering. Because although we have tanha, like kama tanha, but ultimately people can give up kama, like you become a religious person by giving up kama. But giving up ditti is even difficult for religious people. Because, then having given up karma, they become the owners of various ditthis, drustis. See, so ultimately, if you take something to be ditti or drusti, then it's going to be very problematic. Now, Nagarjuna in his Shunyata, it's very interesting when you look at Shunyata concept. What is Shunyata? Is it itself a drusti? What is it? Now, Nagarjuna gives a very interesting answer to this question. Because if you think that Shunyata is another drusti, then you know the situation is you are trying to get rid of drustis with the help of emptiness, which itself is a drusti. In other words, you get rid of all the other drustis with the help of Shunyata. Then what about Shunyata? What should you do about it? Should you keep it? Now, you know, in the chapter we read, Nirvana Pariksha and Tathagata Pariksha, there Nagarjuna refers to Alagadupama Sutta. In the Alagadupama Sutta, Buddha says very clearly, Dhamma Pipahatabba Pageva Adhamma. Even the dharmas have to be given up. And then this story of raft. You use a raft in order to cross across. But having crossed across, if you think that raft has been very useful, you take it with you, then you are not properly behaving towards the raft. Okay, raft help you to get to the other shore, but then you leave the raft there and then you go. Because if not, what happens is you are carrying the raft, which can become a burden. Now, Nagarjuna says a very similar thing about Shunyata. Nagarjuna says, if you take Shunyata, having given up all the drustis, then you are in a serious trouble. Because Shunyata is not another view, not another drishti, not some kind of super drishti. You give up all the other drustis, but you keep only this drusti. Nagarjuna says, no, ultimately, you give up also Shunyata. You know, this whole issue, how to treat Shunyata, is something very important. There is a very interesting statement by Nagarjuna, but I cannot exactly locate the chapter and number here. But the statement is something very interesting. Nagarjuna refers to it. If Nagarjuna says Shunyata becomes drusti, Nagarjuna says that Yesham tu Shunyata drusti tan asadhyan babashire. Shunyata sarva drustinam prokta nisharanam dinai. Yesham tu Shunyata drusti tan asadhyan babhashire. So, Shunyata sarva drustinam prokta Saranam Jinai Yesham tu Shunyata Drusti Tan asadhyan babhashire. Tan asadhyan babhashire. Asadhya in Sanskrit means a patient who cannot be cured. Asadhya. Sadhya means who can be cured. Asadhya means who cannot be cured. Nagarjuna says, Shunyata sarva drustinam prokta nissaranam jinai. The Buddhas have said that Shunyata is to get rid of all the drustis. So the definition of Shunyata is Shunyata sarva drustinam prokta nissaranam jinai. So this part means the Buddhas have said that Shunyata is to give up all views. The Buddhas have said that Shunyata is to give up all the views. And this part says, Yeshantu Shunyata Drusti, for whom Shunyata is Drusti, he is an incurable. Incurable. Incurable means you can't really cure him. Do you see that point? So the first two lines says that Buddhas have that Shunyata is to give up all the drustis. Shunyata sarva drustinam prokta nissaranam jinai. So Shunyata is to give up all the drustis. So the meaning of Shunyata is to give up all the drustis. Actually, it gives the interpretation of Shunyata. Shunyata is something you do. It is not really a philosophical view, according to Nagarjuna. It's not a philosophical view. It is something you do. In other words, a tool. Shunyata is a tool you use in order to give up drustis. Then Nagarjuna says, Yeshantu Shunyata drusti. Whomever Shunyata becomes a drusti, Tanna Sadhyan Babashire, those people are incurable. Because the problem is this. You use Shunyata in order to give up drustis. But having given up drustis, if you keep Shunyata as a drusti, then your person is a very bad position, right? Because you give up all the drustis with the help of Shunyata, but you keep Shunyata itself as a drusti. It's like this. You make use of Dharma in order to give up all the drustis. But in order to give up all the desire, tanha. But you keep the tanha for the Dharma. Then what? You still have tanha, right? Tanha for the Dhamma is also a tanha. So ultimately you have to give up the tanha for the Dhamma. This is in the path. You are talking about a very, very high state. Of course, you cannot give up the Dhamma when you are practicing. You use the Dhamma, right? But then ultimately, when all the tanha is gone, everything that you have tanha is gone, but only thing that you have tanha is Dhamma. Then you give up that also. Then only that you have no tanha at all. But otherwise, you retain one tanha. So long as you have that tanha, you are in the samsara, you are not in the nirvana. Now the same thing here. Nagarjuna says, Shunyata sarva drustina prokta nissaranam jinai. Shunyata has been said by the Buddhas to be the nisharana, giving up of relinquishment of all the drustis. Then he says, Yeshantu Shunyata drusti. For whomever Shunyata becomes a drusti, those people, asadhyan, incurable, are said. Those people are said to be incurable. You can't cure those people. Okay. Now this, remember this, I will find this is in Mulamadhyamikarika, but I don't remember the chapter exactly. This is Very interesting. So the whole effort of Nagarjuna, we can say, to give up all the views. Right? Now, Drusti Paricha, the very last chapter is very important in that sense, because here Nagarjuna examines the Drustis. Okay? We will read this carefully. Whatever views asserting an eternal world based upon the perception, did I exist or not exist in the past, are associated with the prior end of existence. Drustayo bhuvam na bhuvam king na atitve bhavani teacher. Yasta shasvata lokadya purvantan samuprastita. So you have drustis associated with whether you exist in the past or whether you exist in the future, or whether the universe is eternal, world is eternal or not. Now these are, Nagarjuna says, associated with Purvanta, prior end. Now actually this refers to the views described in the Brahmajala Sutta. About your existence, you have views whether you existed in the past, whether you will be existing in the future, how you exist in the past, in what manner did you exist in the past, and all these things. Now these are views about associated with your existence. And then other views are about whether universe is eternal, whether universe is not eternal. Sassato loko, asassato loko. Antava loko, anantava loko. Now all these drustis are associated with Purvanta. You remember in the Brahmajala Sutta there are 62 views associated with Pubbanta, Kappika and Aparanta Kappika. So Pubbanta means the past, Aparanta means future. So the all drustis according to Brahmajala Sutta, Purvanta Kalpika and Aparanta Kalpika. So here Nagarjuna refers to these views, Purvanta Kalpika. Then whatever views asserting the finite etc. based upon the perception, would I not exist in the future or will I become someone else, are associated with posterior end of existence. Now the earlier views are Purvanta, these views are Aparanta. Bhavishyamiti Chantadya Aparanta Samupasrita. So you have views associated with Pubbanta, you have views associated with Aparanta. So whether I will exist in the future, whether the world is eternal or not, those things are associated with Aparanta. So drustis are there associated with Purvanta, drustis are there associated with Aparanta. Now this is the basic idea about drustis. Then look at number 3. The view that I existed in the past is not appropriate. For whosoever was in the previous birth, he indeed is not identical with this person. Now starting from number 3, you can see that Nagarjuna's Paricha. So from number 1 and 2, Nagarjuna gave a very briefly exposition of the Purvanta Kappika and Aparanta Kalpika views. Okay? Then starting from number 3, you can see Nagarjuna's Paricha, examination. So the number 3 says, the view that I existed in the past, abhuvam atitam advanam iti api etam nopapadyate. Nagarjuna says, you cannot think about yourself as abhuvam atitam advanam. I was in the past. I exist in the past. Reason is yohi janmasu urveshu sa evana bhavatyam. Whoever that was in the past, the present person is not that person who was in the past. Now here Nagarjuna is trying to show that each view is the wrong. So what Nagarjuna does is Abhuvam atitam advanam ityapi evam nomupadyate yohi janmasu purvesu sa evana bhavatyam. Read it again. The view that I existed in the past is not appropriate. Why? Whosoever was in the previous birth is not identical with this person. So why it is not proper to think that I was in the past? Because when you talk about I and who was in the past are two different people. They are not identical, right? So Nagarjuna says that therefore it is not proper to think that I exist in the past. Abhuvam atitam advanam. Abhuvam. Aham atitam advanam abhuvam. I was in the past. Nagarjuna says that is not good, not proper, because now you and who existed in the past are not identical. So it is not good. Now look at the next one. Savet meti tu bhavat upadanam vishishtati. Upadana vinirmukta atmate katamah punam. If it were to occur to someone, he indeed is the self. Then grasping is identified. Separated from grasping, what continues yourself? Now, sa evam eti tu bhave upadanam vishishyati. Sa eva atmeti. That itself is the Atma. If you think that itself is the Atma, sa eva atmetu bhavet upadanam vishishyati. Then of course, then you have upadana about it. He indeed is the self, then grasping is identified. Upadanam vishishyati. Upadana vinirmukta atma te katamah punam. Separated from grasping, what constitutes your atma? Upadana vinirmukta atma te katamah punam. How can there be atma without associating the upadana? Upadana vinirmukta atma te katamah bhave. How can there be Atma? So, if you believe in Atma, it is the Atma, then of course it causes Upadana. Because without Upadana, there can't be Atma. So, if you think that who exists in the past is myself, then Nagarjuna says it has Upadana. Because without Upadana, there can't be Atma. That's number 4. Number 5. Upadana vinirmukto nastyatmeti krute sati. Syat upadanam evatma nasti chatmeti vahuna. When it is assumed that there is no self separated from grasping, grasping itself would be self. Yet this is tantamount to saying that there is no self. Okay, when it is assumed that there is no self separated from grasping. Now, if you assume that there cannot be a self without grasping, then grasping would be the self. Upadana becomes the self. Now, if you take Upadana as the self, it is tantamount. Tantamount becomes equal to saying that there is no self. On the other hand, if you say that Upadana is Atma, then of course what you say is no, without Upadana there is no Atma, then what you say is Upadana is Atma. Now, if Upadana is Atma, then of course it is equal to saying that there is no Atma, only there is Upadana. We will read the whole thing and then you will see how you can understand it. Then number 6, grasping is not identical with the self. For that, grasping ceases and arises. Furthermore, how can grasping be grasped? Now here Nagarjuna gives 2 very interesting arguments about why grasping upadana cannot be considered as Atma. Na chopadanam eva Atma vyeti tat samudeti. Because upadana arises and ceases. Okay? If upadana arises and ceases, Nagarjuna asks, how can you say that it is Atma? Why? Because Atma is not arising and ceasing. If you believe in Atma, then Atma exists forever without change. That is the nature of Atma. In the Upanishad, it is described as Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. When the body is destroyed, your Atma is not destroyed. So if you believe in Atma, you have to believe that Atma is not changing. However, if you think that Upadana is Atma, clearly Upadana arises and ceases. Right? So Upadana can't be Atma, or Atma cannot be Upadana. So that's clear. Then the second argument is, how can grasping be the grasper? Katanhi namu padana upadata bhavishyati. How can grasping be the grasper? How come upadanam become upadata? Now these two concepts, upadana and upadata, Nagarjuna says, if you think that upadana is Atma, then there is no distinction between upadana and upadata. Upadata, actually the root is upadatru. Upadata. Nagarjuna says, if you take upadana to be the Atma, then upadana means act of grasping, and one who grasps, upadata, then they become same. Because if you see upadana is Atma, then upadana is grasping, and then Atma is the grasper, one who grasps, then there is no distinction between grasping and grasper. So that's the problem. So there are two arguments against it, Nagarjuna says. The one argument is the distinction between upadana and upadata will disappear. The other thing is, if you say Atma is upadana is always rising and ceasing. Then Atma also has to be rising and ceasing. But by definition, Atma doesn't change. When you say rise and cease, that means change, right? But Atma doesn't change, so therefore upadana cannot be Atma. So number 6 argument should be clear. Grasping is not identical with self, for that ceases and rises. Furthermore, how can grasping be the grasper? We move to the number 7. Anya kuna upadana atmanayo upadyate. Grahyeta hi anupadano yadi anyo nacha grhyate. Interesting. Furthermore, a self that is different from grasping is not appropriate. On the other hand, it is not appropriate to talk about the self without grasping. A person who is without grasping can be observed. However, if he were to be different, he could not be observed. Now, a person who is without grasping can be observed. Anya punang padhanam atmanayo upadate. Grahyet hi anupadano. A person who is without grasping can be observed. Grahyet hi anupadano. Yadi anyo nacha grahyate. Yadi anyo, if he is different from that, then nacha grahyate, he cannot be observed. Now what it means is this. If you talk about the person, self is different from grasping, then self is different from grasping. A person who is without grasping can be observed. However, if he were to be different, he could not be observed. Kahyetu anupadana yadi anyo naruhyate. A person who is without grasping can be observed. However, if he were to be different, let's look at Kalpanas. For the Buddha as well as for Nagarjuna, the denial of substantial entity is based upon empirical evidence, namely the perception of individuality consisting of 5 aggregates, and so on. The 5 aggregates do not appear individually as insulated discrete elements. They appear as a lump which retains its individuality based upon dispositions and continuity founded upon consciousness. In such a context, he is called a person. In the context of a society, he becomes social being with relationship to others. Okay, it goes like that. Well, anyhow, the argument there is now earlier in the number 6, Nagarjuna said you cannot say grasping and the grasper are identical. Number 7, he says you cannot say grasping is different from grasper, because then it loses the meaning. So on the one hand, you cannot say grasping and grasper are the same. On the other hand, you cannot say they are different. Now you must be able to see that here again, 4 positions. Upadana and Upadata are the same. Upadana and Upadata are different from each other. In either position, if you understand it as the substantial sense, then you are in trouble. So furthermore, self that is different from grasping is not appropriate. Why? A person who is without grasping can be observed. However, if he were to be different, he would not be observed. He cannot be observed. Prudhite means realize, understand. Okay. Thus, next one, he is neither different from grasping nor identical with it. A self does not exist. Yet it is not the case that a person who does not grasp does not exist. This much is certain. Evam nani upadanam na chopadanam evasa. Atma nastyanupadana napi nastyesha nishchaya. Now that's very interesting. Read it again. He is neither different nor from grasping nor identical. The self does not exist. Atma nasti. Anupadana napi nastyeva nishchita. Yet it is not the case that the person who does not grasp does not exist. There is no Atma, but we cannot say that there is no person who does not grasp. This much is certain. So 2 positions. One thing is, Nagarjuna, there is no Atma. However, although there is no Atma, you cannot say there is no person who is not grasping. You can't deny that. Because when you say Upadana is not hanging in the sky or something. Upadana is always in some person. So, you cannot say that there is no person without Upadana. There is a person with Upadana. But what you can say is Atma nasti. But there is no Atma. So here Nagarjuna is trying to show that Atma is neither identical nor different from Upadana. That's number 8. Go to the number 9. The statement I did not exist in the past is not appropriate. For this person is not different from whosoever existed in the previous lives. Now Nagarjuna says, Nabhuvam apitam advanam itiyetam nopadyate. It is not proper to say that I did not exist in the past. The reason is because this person is not different from whosoever existed in the previous life. Now in a way, if you say that I exist in the past, this person who is now saying this, not different from whoever existed in the previous life, then it is clear that denial of absolute difference. So in the way you cannot say I exist in the past, you cannot say I did not exist in the past. Now again the Buddhist position is, on the one hand you cannot say I exist in the past. On the other hand you cannot say I did not exist. So on the one hand you existed, On the another hand, you did not exist. Okay? Because if you say that you did not exist in the past, it becomes uchcheda. If you say I exist in the past, it becomes shashwata. So, without getting into uchcheda or without getting into shashwata, how can you say this? Now that is the challenge. Because you can't say that I did not exist. Then of course you are saying uchcheda. But on the other hand, if you say I exist, then you become shashwata. So that's why I did not exist in the past is not appropriate. For this person is not different from whosoever existed in the previous life. Move on to the number 10. Yadi eyam bhavet anya pratyakkhaya tam bhavet tatayvachasa santishte tatra jayet vamrtah. If this person were to be different from that person in the previous existence, then he would come to be even forsaken that person. In that case, he would remain the same. And in such a context, an immortal would emerge. What is that? If this person were to be different from that person, then he would come to be even forsaking that person. Now, if you say that you are different from that person, then you are dissociating yourself from that person. In that case, he would remain the same. Now, if you say you are different from that person, but then you are saying that you are somebody else, in that case, he would remain the same, and in such a context, an immortal would emerge. So there could be a person who is an immortal. You need to really carefully read the text to understand what he says is absolute identity as well as absolute difference. This involves complete independence. And as such, it would constitute immortality. Now, you know, if you say that you are different from other person, then who are you? Then you say that you existed in the past, but you are different from that person, or you are same with that person. Now, either way, if you that you existed in the past, you are different from that person, then you have to be separated from that person. Ultimately, what happens is you stand alone without any change. Nagarjuna says, then of course you become immortal. Immortal means not dying, not being born again, not change. So here the clue is to see the whole process as absolute different or absolute identity. If you put it as absolute identity or absolute difference, then you cannot solve the problem. Because, you know, absolute identity is immortality ultimately. You are not dying. Absolute difference is uchcheda, annihilation. So either way you cannot portray the situation by those terms. Number 11, uchcheda karmanam nashau tatanyeka tatanyena kruta karmanam annena paribhoga syad evam adi prasajyate. Now he says that what are the problems that arise? If it were the case, there would be annihilation and destruction of actions. There would be annihilation and destruction of the actions. This implies that the fruit of the action performed by one will be experienced by another. Like so karoti so padisamvedeti, anyo karoti anyo padisamvedeti. If you say you are different from the person who was in the last birth, then of course what you did is experienced by somebody else, right? If you say that you are different from so karoti, I mean that is the position is anyo karoti anyo padisamvedeti. It's like a different person did something, different person enjoying the fruit. It is obviously injustice, right? If you do something, you must experience either good or bad. But if you say that you are different from the other person, then you can't make meaningful the action. Because you did action, somebody else did action, you are enjoying the result. Yet, number 12, in that context, the error of assuming an emergent without prior existence does not follow. Either the self would be cause, or if it has occurred, it would be without a cause. Now the same thing, either self will have a cause or self will not have a cause. Now if you say self has a cause means causally conditioned, Paticcasamuppanna, then of course we will have to say that self is impermanent and all that, But then self is not impermanent according to the people who believe in self. Either the self will be cause, or if it has occurred, it would be without cause. Now read the Kalpana's account. The concept of self was posited in order to account for the continuity in the human personality, which could also explain moral responsibility. However, the denial of an eternal self led to the opposite view that there is no continuity, but annihilation. The denial of an eternal self and the consequent assertion of annihilation do not imply the further metaphysical view that something that did not exist before comes into, which came to be interpreted as the Abhuta Bhava Utpada in the Sautrantika school. In other words, there is no implication here that existence is completely independent, without any prior connections. As such, if there were to be any self, it would be made. If it is not, and if it were assumed to arise, self would be causeless. Now, that is a little bit, the dialectical type of argument. Nagarjuna says, error of assuming an emergent without prior existence does not follow. Either the self would be cause. Now, if you take this position, then of course there are two alternatives. Either you have to say self is cause or self is not cause. But if you say self is cause, then of course you are saying that self is Paticcasamuppanna, Anicca, Sankhya and so on, which the people who believe in self don't want to say. But on the other hand, if it has occurred, it should be without cause. Otherwise you have to say self is without cause. Then the problem is more than accepting a self, you are accepting something to be without cause. Now that's an even more serious thing. How can you believe something to be without cause? You can't be here without cause. Now, so either way, it leads to a difficult position. Now, number 13. Evam drustir atite jana bhum aham abhum aham ubhayam nobhayam cheti naisa samupapadyate. Now it refers to the four positions. Thus, whatever view there is, such as I existed in the past, did not, both, neither is not really appropriate. So finally Nagarjuna concludes in number 13, you cannot really say that I existed in the past, I did not exist in the past, both I existed and I did not exist in the past, or that neither I existed nor I did not exist in the past. So Nagarjuna says that all these four positions are inappropriate. Now if you think carefully, you can see why these four positions are not appropriate. The four positions are, you can say, I existed in the past. I did not exist in the past. Then I both, that means existed and not existed. And then next one is neither. Now, if you look at each is rejected for different reasons. If I say I existed in the past, then this becomes eternalism. You believe that there is something called I permanently existing, then I existed in the past. So normally, usually it goes to the eternalism. You believe in eternalism, I exist in the past. Or if you say I did not exist, then you reject that I exist, then what happens is you accept annihilationism. That means I exist before, but then I did not exist. So still you have that feeling that you existed, but you existed before, now you are not. So the I who existed has been annihilated. Something like that. Okay, number 2. Number 3 is I existed and not existed. Now that position Nagarjuna not gives reason, but simply he rejects this because you can't be both. As I said the other day, it violates principle of non-contradiction, because you can't have both existed and not existed together. Okay, so that violates the principle of non-contradiction. So you can't accept that. And on the other hand, the 4th position, you say I neither existed nor not existed. You reject both existent and not existent. That is wrong, because you existed in some form. So you can't say both don't apply, because you existed in some form. So only problem is, how are you going to describe your existence? Did you exist without any change? Are you the same person? Are you a different person? Now again we are going to the usual problem, so karoti, so padisanvedeti, anyo karoti, anyo padisanvedeti. Both are wrong. If you say so karoti, so padisanvedeti, you think that doer and the same person, Atma. But on the other hand, the extreme opposite view, anyo karoti, is very bad. Somebody does and somebody else gets the result. So that's not very good either. Both cannot be put together, because then both, if you put together, they violate the principle of non-contradiction. And then 4th position is not permissible, because actually there is a continuation of the person. So Buddha wanted to show this without getting into any of the 4 positions. How can you say this? All 4 positions are wrong, but there must be a way to say this without getting into any of the 4 positions. Clear? I know that is not very clear, but all 4 positions are not applicable. Very interesting to see why the 4th position is not applicable, because you have to admit that there is existence. So then it is a matter of saying without getting into this end or without getting into that end. That's why Buddha says, Etete ubhovante anupagama majjhena tathagato dhammam deseti why don't we stop at that for today, and then in my next Nagarjuna session, I will be reading the whole chapter. And then we will be done with the book. Then in my last 2 or 3 sessions, what I will like to do is to have an overall discussion on Nagarjuna's philosophy, okay? Based on the text so far we have read. Actually, in this discussion, you read quite several chapters of Dharma. So I think we read quite a lot. So based on those things, we will try to figure out what Nagarjuna's philosophy is towards that. Okay, I will wind up for today.
Thank you, sir.